In high school coaching, a lot of the good stories come after the game. Sit back, watch, and listen to the journeys to the sideline and the stories of high school coaches. After the Game, presented by Baker Sports and High School 912.
Welcome to After the Game. Josh Baker, your host, along with my great assistant, the legend, Hall of Fame coach, Kevin Sullivan.
Got another legend here today.
We certainly do have another legend today.
Me, Joey Wiles.
Yeah, Coach Joey Wiles of St. Augustine fame. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Well, I've been excited about this for a couple weeks now. I listened to Brian Braddock talk, and I heard all the insults Kevin gave to to his former principals and probably ADs and superintendents. So I figured,
hey, I'm retired.
I can't screw it up.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin took shots at every administrator in Jacksonville.
It was great.
You know, Brian took a couple shots at every other school in Jacksonville. So it's pretty easy follow up.
Yeah.
So, Coach grew up in Melbourne, Florida guy.
Yep.
Grew up in Melbourne. Multi-sport guy, football guy.
Yeah, so my mom and dad were from York, PA. I was born there, and we moved down to Melbourne when the Space Center was going. My dad worked for NASA. So I grew up in Indialantic, Florida. Went to Mel High, played. Back then you could play all three sports. I played football, basketball, baseball, and I wasn't good at anything. But I love being on the team. I love being around, meeting new people, and love sports.
Yeah. What got you into coaching? Well, what got you into coaching football? Obviously, the love of sports got you into coaching, but what got you into football?
I had a ninth grade football coach, Harold Fish. He's passed now, but in ninth grade, I knew what I wanted to do, and I'm probably one of the few people that were like that. But
right.
I love the influence he had on kids and on me, so I knew I wanted to one day coach and teach. Kind of got me into it.
Gotcha. So after college,
yeah,
straight into coaching.
So after college, my wife and I got married, Lydia. And we moved to East Coweta, Noonan, Georgia.
Yeah.
I worked for Vernon Kidd, who was, I really credit him with a lot of. If we had success, it goes back to him. Taught me a lot about. One time I walked in and told him I thought we need to put something in. And he said, "Where'd you learn it?" And I said, "Well, I saw it on TV." And he said, "Well, you're dumb as a rock. So what you need to do is you need to go and learn it from school." So he paid for me. I drove up to Boston College, spent 3 days there, spent 3 days at Penn State. And then from my 35 years in coaching, I would visit two colleges and at least one or two high schools every year. So I fell in love with that part of it.
Yeah, that's the old school YouTube,
Yes.
right? The old school internet, the old school Zoom, just actually going and being in front of them.
And the thing about that though is you always, when you go to clinics or when you go to practice and
Right.
they let you sit in the meetings or that, you learn so much of the little thing. You may only learn one or two things, but man, it's invaluable being able to go and sit with people and talk to people and just watch.
Yeah, watching them implement what they're telling you to see how they answer the questions that come about. Right?
Yeah, Kevin and I have talked about that a lot. I think a lot of the younger coaches out there rely on, the internet, and they'll see the next cool scheme, and they'll jump at that, and then they'll see another one jump at that. I think Kevin was saying, you go sit down with people, they'll give you the scheme. If you develop a relationship with them, they will then tell you the things that are going to hurt it, things you're going to experience that you may not be ready for. And you will have that relationship where you can pick up the phone and call them.
Right. So I don't even remember who it was, Kevin. Somebody said in one of our shows that you can pick up a scheme right away if it fits your personnel.
Right.
What makes you an expert is when you can fit your personnel to your scheme.
Right.
When you know that scheme well enough that you can switch it around, change it around, make it fit your guys.
Yeah, and Kobe Bryant said, the reason I'm one of the best in the world is because I fell in love with fundamentals. And I think, one thing at St. Augustine, I know Kevin did everywhere he's been, we had a philosophy of what we wanted to do on offense and defense. And we would tweak it, but we never strayed from our philosophy.
Right.
We weren't all over the place. And I think that's one thing I'm really proud of what Brian Braddock has done at St. Augustine. He's taken what we did and what he learned as a player, and he's doing it better now. He's doing a phenomenal job down there, and I'm so proud of him. But he hasn't strayed far from his roots.
Right.
All right.
We're going to spend plenty of time on St. Augustine. So,
Okay.
but we got to get you there first. So East Coweta, which at the time now we're talking 82, 83, small town, right?
Yeah, small town, two little stores. I think there was one stoplight. It was in Little Sonoy, Georgia. My wife and I lived in this apartment. We were so poor. We had my grandmother's black and white television, and the only time you could watch it, at night you could watch it, and during the day you could watch it, but you had to close the curtains to where it was dark enough to see it. And I'm really proud of those moments of, we grew together as a husband and a wife, and we grew with that small community. And I think that small community helped me as I came to St. Augustine, be a part of it.
Right. And before you went to St. Augustine, right, you went back home to Melbourne?
Yeah, I went back home. We were 2 years at East Coweta. My mom had breast cancer at the age of 44. We moved back, and I was grateful that job opened up. Tom McIntyre, another mentor of mine, Sean's father,
Really?
hired me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Sean's
How about
father
awesome.
hired me, and we went back home, and that allowed me to spend 5 years with my mom before she passed. So that was really special to me, and a neat kind of offshoot from that. I was fortunate. I was called to be on the selection committee. I'd retired at Creekside, and I was part of the committee that got to hire Sean at Creekside. So pretty neat. I make fun of Sean all the time. I said, Sean, I remember you when you were running around peeing in your pants on the sideline. But he's a great young coach, and his father, I'm very grateful.
Now, did you take over from his father?
Yes. I was, again, a young, dumb assistant, and I became a young, dumb head coach. And he went in to the principal and recommended me for the job. And, I spent 8 years at my alma mater, which was great. Pretty cool to go back. Kevin, his being down with Coach Smith. I know he's very close with him, too. That means a lot to you.
And I asked Sully when we did his show about that year one, going from assistant to head coach. How big a difference was it?
Well, I know Melbourne had not had a lot of success. So Tom McIntyre's last 2 years, we won the district. Now it was the first time in a while. So I take over. I'm the one of the children coming back home, and I'm going to do a great job. And I remember sitting at we had played Fort Pierce Central, and we got beat, and we were 0-6. And I remember they were loading the bus. The kids were loading the bus, and I was literally I was standing by the fence, just kind of in tears, thinking, am I going to be able to do this? Am I doing the right thing in my life? And, I kind of had one of those come to Jesus meetings, and I said, well, I'm going to do this, and got to get back to going and learning from people, everybody I could learn from. I'd drive down to Vero Beach and visit with Billy Livings, who was very much a legend. Bill Cubitt, that taught me the wing tee. He was down at Stewart at the time before he went to college. So I kind of, I wasn't sure I was going to be cut out for this at that moment, that first year. So I knew I had to change a little bit, get a lot better. So
you were at Melbourne or Mel High for what, 7 years?
Yeah, 8 years as a head coach.
Okay.
And then I spent the 3 as an assistant. So
and from the beginning to the, from first year 1 to year 8 as a head coach?
Boy, completely different. Kevin will tell you, you get in that seat and these young assistants that want to become head coaches, you're never ready. Right. But man, make sure you get a mentor. Make sure you have somebody that you can call and go to all the time, or it's going to be tough for you. But it was a matter of learning how to deal with teachers, learning how to deal with administrators, learning how to deal with players. And And then, as you'll find out later in coaching, it's way more the relationships and the culture of your program than it actually is the scheme. We went to 3 state championships at St. Augustine. We ran the same defense all 3 years, but we were in 3 different offenses. So that to me tells you it's not about the offense. It's about your strength and conditioning program and your culture and the way you expect kids to act in class, outside in the community.
Right. So, all right. So what gets you to St. Augustine?
So I was at a point the whole time at Melbourne. I never hired an assistant coach. The principal was assistant principal when I was at Mel High as a kid.
Okay.
So I think he sometimes saw me as a kid. And I told my wife, I said, for us to be good, I've got to go in and get a commitment from him. So I went in. Hey, I've got to be able to hire some football guys. I was taking teachers and trying to teach them,
right.
Football,
coaching your places. Staff, right?
Yeah, and so I went in. He said, I can't commit that to you. And at that point, I said, I've got to leave. So went in, resigned the next day. And then at that point, kind of send resumes out and got an offer from Fort Pierce Central. And I took the Fort Pierce Central job.
So you had a stop before St. Augustine.
Yeah, so I went to Fort Pierce.
Wait. You resigned your job without having another job?
Well, I taught. So I wasn't like you, Kevin. I didn't get to walk around. I didn't get to walk around campus. And,
I taught. What do you mean? I was outstanding in my field. I had to roll the balls out with the best of them.
So I'm kidding you, Kevin.
I know.
Kevin's phenomenal with his kids. But I taught biology, so I could go and resign I think at that time it was like $1,500 supplement.
Right.
So I go, okay, I'll leave. And so, I resigned and got offered the Fort Pierce Central job. The same, actually, day before the St. Augustine. So I took Fort Pierce.
Okay. And short stint there?
Very short. I was driving an hour every day. Fort Pierce started at 7 in the morning. So I was getting up at 4 something, driving down there. We would go play Okeechobee, a JV game, and I'd drive Thursday to Okeechobee, and I'd drive back home to Melbourne. And I told my wife, I said, there's no way I can't keep this up. And Wendell McCraw, the former AD who passed away that hired me, Wendell called me during the season and said, hey, we think this job's going to be open again. We'd love to have you come. And I think I will. So that's kind of how the second time they offered was the time we came.
Right. Meant to happen. It happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's
right.
It is.
Even though you don't think it's supposed to happen, it still ends up happening that way.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing in life. As you get older in life, you can look back at the road that you took, and there's no question God's hand was in everything, in all of this. Getting me here. It allowed us to move closer. Lydia's mom she had disease and was passing away, so she was closer to her and Fernandina. So there, my daughters, Chris and Jessica, loved St. Augustine. So it was just the perfect place for us. And the people in the town of St. Augustine are the kindest people that you'd ever want to meet. We fell in love with it here.
So day one, St. Augustine, what type of program are you taking over?
Woo! Well, Charlie Lopez was here before me, and Charlie laid down a great foundation. I think, obviously, when the new guy comes in, he gets so much more. And
right.
And I got more than what Charlie did, and Charlie was a great supporter. So they had, St. Augustine struggled. I think they made the playoffs once in the 80s, and last district championship was 1979, I think, back then. And, they allowed us to do things. They allowed us to put in a weight room. They allowed me to bring great coaches along that first couple of years. That kind of got it rolling.
Yeah, so, the tradition of what is St. Augustine now started with you, started that year.
I never like to say with me. It was with a lot of people that put, Kevin will tell you, we sit in the chair and get all the glory, but there's so many people that were part of it, the principles that you have. And out of the staff I had Bob Stoops, GA, Scott Chandler that came in and did the defense that year, and I did the offense. Scott later went on and won a state championship up in Tennessee. Tim Tharp came and coached the offensive line. Tim just got inducted in the FACA Hall of Fame this year. And then, I was able to hire coaches. Jim Sauls, another Hall of Famer. Jim Matheson, Mark Shelley, Brian Braddock has done a phenomenal job. Kurt Stewart, I think, the best defensive line coach in North Florida. Daniel Woolner is now up in Tennessee at a private school as a DC with Bobby Bentley, who is in the college ranks. Joel Brighton is a tremendous friend, was a great coach. Josh Hookstra, that's gone on and done well. So there were a lot of, I hate to mention names because you always forget them,
right?
But there were a lot of people. Jeff Holland is the AD that came in and allowed us to do the things we needed to do. Very unselfish guy, never took credit for anything. Learned a lot from Jeff. All of our principals, Mike O'Laughlin was our principal at the time, since passed away. So there were a lot of people, Booster Club presidents, Dean Petty, Roy Meese was in there for a long, long time. They used to make meals for us. So Saturday afternoons, we go in about 8 o'clock, and I'd start the laundry, and we'd be there till 5, and the Booster Club would come in and cook. I mean, they cook lavishly. We would have steak. We would have lobster. If games were close, we might have hot dogs, but our Booster Club was they were phenomenal as well.
I got you. So how long did the building process take to take St. Augustine from team hadn't won but one district title in 20 years to a consistent contender?
Yeah. So the first year we kind of shocked the system. I felt like we had to do it. So we brought kids in. Brian talked about this. We brought kids in, and they were in the gym and the ROTC room, and they gridded off like a 3x6, and they could come in and sleep there. We kept them for 3 nights, and we do 3 a days back then. We do 3 a day.
Good old days.
Hey, these guys, Kevin will tell you, these kids nowadays barely get through 1.
Yes.
And the Brian Braddocks and Nathaniel Woolners, those guys went through 3 a days.
Yeah.
I mean, they knew what it was like, and so I think that initially got it going, and they knew there was going to be a big change. So that first year we won 8 games, and we lost in a close shootout. Went down and played a bowl game, won that, finished 8-3 that year. Went back to 4-5 the next year, and then from then on out, we had winning years. And '99 was our first playoff year, and Coach McCraw made us go play Choctawhatchee in Fort Walton. We had to leave at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning and go up and play and drive back that night. Oof. And I went in and I said, Coach, we need to spend. Jim McCool told me that was the worst thing they ever did. And Jim, another legendary.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Legend,
phenomenal guy. And but Jim McCool kind of messed us up. We got beat by a touchdown. I think if we had spent the night, we may have had some legs with us and may have won that. So that kind of got it rolling.
Got it rolling, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, what year was Menendez open?
2001.
So 2001. How did that affect your? I mean,
it was funny because that was the year we went to the first state championship game in Tallahassee, and we lost some kids, and we lost some kids, that you didn't want to lose, but we dropped down in classification. So I don't know if that helped us or not. It did make things a little bit more manageable.
Numbers-wise.
From the standpoint of how many T-shirts you had to order and how many meals you had to have and, all of those kind of things. So that made it a little bit easier. Our staff stayed the same size, so I think it actually helped us, the opening of that school.
Yeah, that was to me was a surprise when that happened, was that that staff didn't get divided.
Yeah, everybody stayed. Staff with us, and I think they knew things were going in the right direction. There's always that lure of the new, new kind of thing. But Most of the guys I had were very similar to me and kind of more, we like the stability piece. So
Right.
a lot of those guys all stayed with us.
Well, 99, 98, Joey and I really became sort of close when I came to Jackson, and we had a lot of different things. And one thing I took away from Coach was at Jackson, they had so many straight losing seasons, and we were struggling feeding the kids. And Coach says, I called Joe. I said, what do y'all do for Team A? He goes, we solicit the area churches. He said, I just sent a letter out there. And I'm like, oh, my God, that's genius. And so we did that from then on until I retired. And it was the most tremendous thing, impacted our school. One of the biggest impacts in 99 season was taking our kids into our community so the people could see the kids. Because at that time, Jackson hadn't won anything in it so long that everybody, I wanted people to see our kids, that they were just regular kids, they were good kids.
Right.
But the stigma of where we're at and where we're located in that, and I thought that was one of the biggest things. And then sort of from then on, that's when Coach and I became pretty close during the coaching part of it.
Yeah, Kevin and I have coached a lot of all-star games together, and it has been great. I've heard a lot about Kevin and getting to where we've been close, and we had a ball in all-star games.
Yeah, we did.
But, the church thing, I always felt like the greatest thing we could give our kids is planting a seed of faith with them.
Right.
Because as life hits you, and life's going to hit you hard one day, you're gonna face tragedies, and I want them to know where they can turn, because I really truly believe it's bad. And it was great because the thing that Kevin said was that kids are going out in the community, and the community have a conception of what the kids are and what football players are like.
Right.
And man, when the kids come in and they're saying thank you and
Yes.
you're welcome, and they're coming in, they're sitting there quiet, and they're eating, and they listen to a message, from the youth pastor, the pastor. That is powerful. And I think I'm glad you said that, Kevin, because I would have forgotten.
No, that was like one of the biggest impacts. And we don't, I was 8 years as head coach, and there's something I just learned like out of the blue, and it blew my mind. I'm like, oh my God. And it was the greatest thing. We took the kids to First Baptist of downtown, not downtown, on A Street. And we come in, and I like, what do y'all feed them? He goes, oh, we're giving them venison. I go, oh, don't tell them that. Don't tell them that. And so it was just funny. It was, those are the stories. But the kids, it was like 6 old white ladies, probably in their 70s and 80s, feeding the kids. And our kids are back there hugging them afterwards and thanking them. It was tremendous, man. And I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah,
and it really was.
Powerful.
Well, that's what you two guys were so good at, is building that, now the buzzword's culture, right?
Yeah.
Building that around the program with the community. The community buys in and supports, and then they come on Friday night, and the kids appreciate it, and the kids, sense of pride, right? Which is, and I'm not just saying this because you're here. I don't think anyone has done a better job of that in the last 20 years than what you built at St. Augustine. For Brian to tell us that, what did he say, 13 of their 17 coaches played there, on staff played there, is phenomenal. That they just want to be part of it. They can't. It's not a 4-year process for them. It's a lifelong process.
It is, and St. Augustine's unique. It's a unique community. It's a, kind of tucked away. We don't have a lot of kids. We don't have kids leaving, but we don't have them moving in either.
Right.
So we kind of had what we had, and I think it was a little bit tighter back then, because now kids do move around somewhat. But Brian's still done a phenomenal job of keeping it a community school. He's done much more than I have in getting the kids out doing community work and stuff like that. So,
Well, I can remember growing up, coming up, the St. Augustine was the first program I remembered where the Pop Warner dressed just like the high school, all the way up. You know, the Yellow Jackets, and played games at the high school, and kind of that feeder program bought in. And was it you didn't have middle school football, right?
Not when
you started.
Not when I started.
And so that Pop Warner feeder program was a big deal.
Yeah, we had every year we did we did clinic, invited Pop Warner, and then when the middle school, we'd invite the middle school, and we had barbecue for them, and we gave them T-shirts, and I had drill books run off for them, and all we did was take them out and teach them how to tackle and how to block. We didn't teach them any scheme. If you can run the ball and tackle, you're going to be good on defense. If you can block and hold the ball on offense, you're going to be good on offense. So that's kind of we were pretty simple back then.
Yeah. And like you said, you talk about Coach Highland, right? So he was there. He didn't hire you, right? He was soon.
No, Jeff. Jokingly, Jeff was our baseball coach.
That's right.
And I remember coming in. I just saw Jeff the other night, and he asked me. He goes, "Hey, when are you going to come out and throw BP?" Because I told him, I said, "Jeff, if you come out and coach with me," because I knew he was good. I said, "If you come out and coach, I'll come out and throw BP, for the baseball team in the spring." Well, I never went out. Of course I wasn't going to come out and this rag arm. So he saw me the other night. He goes, "Hey, when are you going to come out and throw BP for me?"
That's
so
awesome.
Jeff was an assistant. He was an assistant coach at the time, and then he was a great line coach, really good. And then he went into the AD route and was able to even make a bigger impact on this.
Yeah. Was he still coaching as the AD early on, or
No,
just went straight
he had to go,
into AD?
He had to go AD. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
before we get into all the on-field success that you had, we got to take a quick break. So more with Coach Wiles when we come back on After the Game.
The most powerful 4 words in our language. I believe in you.
More great stories from legendary high school football coach Joey Wiles and reminiscing on St. Augustine's state championship run in 2005. Stay with us on After the Game, presented by Baker Sports and High School 912.
Baker Sports is local sports. Uniforms from Pop Warner and Little League to travel ball, high school, and college. They make you look good. They help you play good. Baker Sports has been helping families make memories that will last a lifetime with their Baker's Buckets. We've got a lot of these filled with baseballs and softballs in the garage. I've been throwing batting practice to Ty and Kaylee for years, and also sit on the Baker's Bucket, catching Kaylee while she practices her pitching. Baker Sports is homegrown, and a lot of employees that used to play on local ball fields now work for Baker Sports, now helping you look good, play good, and make memories of your own. Visit Bakersport.com to see what Baker Sports can do for you. Custom apparel, Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, embroidery, screen printing, and more. Baker Sports is local sports, from Jacksonville to anywhere in the Southeast. Bakersport.com. In high school coaching, a lot of the good stories come after the game. Sit back, watch, and listen to the journeys to the sideline and the stories of high school coaches. After the Game, presented by Baker Sports and High School 912.
All right, welcome back to After the Game. Coach Joey Wiles this week. Coach, on the field, build the culture, get the community involved at St. Augustine, and then the wins start rolling in. Mm-hmm. What changed with that program? Like I said, we mentioned earlier building it into a winner, but to take it to the next level. You said 01 first state championship.
Right. I think the biggest thing was the development of the weight room and the expectation. We tried to make the weight room just like practice. So they were on a whistle. We were going as fast as we could go. But we wanted to make that the weight room. And Mike Malillo also coached with me, and we won a state championship in weightlifting as well. So the 2 state championships we have are in weightlifting and football. And so it was the development of the weight room to get bigger, faster, stronger, that kind of thing. That, to me, was the biggest difference. And interestingly enough, we didn't do it like everybody. We have kids in the community that had to work, like Kevin did. We had a lot of kids that had to work. And I went up and visited up in North Florida. And they actually had their weightlifting. They did 2 days a week, Tuesday and Thursday. And I said, man, there is no way, you guys, and they're winning state championship. So I go up there and watch it, and they go 2 days a week. So we went 2 days a week. And I think it gave the coaches a summer. It gave the kids time. And we did not drop off at all lifting-wise, because those 2 days weren't be like anything.
You're talking about in the summer, right?
In the summer. Yeah, it wasn't going to be like anything kids had ever seen before. Now, we would come in maybe on a Wednesday if the school was coming in to throw against it. but 2 days were the mandatory. So we did that. Now, after a few years, we ended up going to 3 days a week. We never went 4. We were 3 days a week, and we'd throw on that 4th day if a team was coming in.
Yeah, and that's the thing back in the day, like in June, it was all about lifting, getting strong, and that. And then after 4th of July, we'd throw. We'd come down there and throw with you.
Yep.
It wasn't all this like, oh, we're going to 7-on-7 and we're doing everything. Like June was go to camp, go to team camp, go to this and that. But the kids, it was all about weightlifting. They were playing basketball, whatever. But once you got back from 4th of July, then you'd throw a little bit more, get on the field. So the coaches weren't all like, every day, like 4 or 5 days a week. It wasn't like that. And which to me is taking a little bit, causing coaches to lose stuff, family time and that. And that's one thing I think is a little bit different now than it was back then.
Yeah. Right. I think another thing we did a really good job of, we took the summer and we had practice schedules in the summer. Our kids, we were going 7-on-7 in shorts, and we were doing our inside run drills in shorts. So we had all our fits, we had all our coverages in, we had our basically our offense was in. We had everything in with the exception of probably about half our kicking game. Mm-hmm. So we started early, and I think that made a difference too, making the summer just like kind of the fall as far as practice.
The success in 01 state championship, keep it rolling, and then 05 breakthrough.
Right. So in 04, and I heard Kevin talk about it, it was probably the best football team maybe North Florida's ever seen, the Bulls team.
Right? I will say, I'll go to my grave on that one.
Yeah. I mean, we played them. We were in the semis at our place, and we ended up getting beat pretty good by them. And then Bulls went on and won the whole thing. And afterwards, I called Corky, and I said, Corky, do you think we could have beaten oh, absolutely, you'd have beaten those guys. So, Corky hadn't been there and had that team, we'd have probably won it.
Well, he had to beat us first. And then Joey calls me Saturday and goes, what do you think? I said, enjoy this week coaching. Because they were good, man. They were good.
Next week you can start Christmas shopping. So that 04 team, my wife taught math, and Brian Rizzi came in. He was our quarterback at the time, came in, and he said, Miss Wiles, we will not feel like that ever again. And he told my wife that. She came home and told me, and it was really cool. He was a safety, and I went to him in the offseason and asked him to move to quarterback. I mean, he was a quarterback, asking him to move to safety. And that's a big move.
Sure.
Very unselfish kid. So we're in the semifinals that next year, and not Baker County, North Marion's moving down the score to win the game that year. Brian Rizzi's the one that makes the interception on the 3-yard line to win the game for us. So it was a kid that went from quarterback to safety. He was the one that came in and told my wife, we'll never feel like this. And then, the next week we went down. It was pretty surreal. You go down to, we played in, I think it was Dolphin Stadium at the time. So we were in Miami. We got the big, we're on our bus and getting the police escort. It was really pretty cool. But the difference was in 01, we were just so happy to be there. Oh, my God. We were caught up in the lights and all that. And then in 05, we said, no, we're not going to make that mistake. Yeah. This is a business trip. And something Coach Paterno told me, I'd go into a bowl practice with them, and we were out there before the team got out. And I asked him, I said, Coach, if there was one thing you could tell me, and that's going to make an impact on our football program, this next year. He said, make sure your kids are rested. The season goes on, you want to keep getting more and more and more. That year we won it. It was 16 weeks. The last 5 weeks when we got in the playoffs, we never went full pack. Never. Not one day. It was either shells or shorts. Mm-hmm. And we had great senior leadership. Brandon James was on that team, and Quinterrence Cooper and Caleb Sturgis. We had great leadership, and I could go to them and say, hey, how are the guys' legs? And they said, Coach, we're tired.
Right.
Had a long day in the weight room, tired. And I said, I trusted them. So that was really important. I think for young coaches, make sure your kids are rested. I know you want to do all this stuff in the summer and then grind them in the, in the season. If you're planning on a long season, you've got to plan on a long season. You can't grind the kids or your coaches.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm sure Kevin would,
100%
would agree with that.
100%.
Yeah.
So as the rise of St. Augustine's programs happen, as you guys are getting better, getting to the state championship and then winning one, the county's getting better as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
really growing up, booming in population, new schools popping up all over the north end of the county. You had a lot of success against the county schools up north, right? Especially one specific player.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we're really proud of is in our 20 years, we're 59-3 in the county. And Frank Garris told me to make sure to mention that all 3 losses were to Nice, 2 to Stokaitis, and 1 my last game we just lock and lost. But we played Tim Tebow 4 times, and I will say the things he's doing for young people and now is phenomenal. He's an incredible human being. But back then, I didn't like him a whole lot.
Right.
So a cool story, I went and saw him as a young player. Craig Howard had, Nice was rolling. And they were doing a lot of things. Kevin will tell you, not a lot of people are going 4 wide, and 5 wide, and motioning, and all this stuff. And you would be in cover 2 or cover 3 or man coverage. That's what everybody was doing. And we were having to change from 3 to 2 and all this stuff based on motion. So I called Coach Stoops out of Oklahoma, and I said, Coach, we got this kid at quarterback is going to be amazing. He's a tailback. He's the biggest kid on the field. He can throw, and they're moving. He said, get on the plane, fly out. I got something. So I flew out. Bo Pelini had just come from the 49ers to Oklahoma. And they had put in 2 read that everybody calls palms now. So we learned it. I was out there 3 days. I learned it. And so I come back. Kevin and I coaching an all-star game, Florida-Louisiana game. And I go, Kevin, man, I got this great coverage. I think we ought to look at it. So we put it in the all-star game 4 days.
Yep.
And it was
4
great.
days. We're great.
Worked great. So we went back and put it in. And
So did we.
and it was great. And it's a coverage you can play against everything. Empty trips, you can play against everything. Now, obviously, as people got better, they put their number 3 there, and he'd hurt your Mike linebacker, so you'd have you might check out of it. But you can, if you have a Mike that can run, you can play palms versus everything. And we like that because of all of the motion and stuff that we were getting from Nice at the time. And we ended up going 4-0 against Tim Tebow, and that's
some great games too.
Oh, phenomenal games!
Right, great environments too.
Yeah, some of the biggest. We had some of the. I know up at their place the last time we played them, there was every head coach in America there on the sidelines. So I'll tell you what, those were the worst 4 years of my life. You just didn't sleep, and at the beginning of the year, you knew Nice was down the road,
Right.
and then you knew that very likely we were in the same district one year, or the same district one year. You might have to play them again because the runner-up got in.
Right.
So there was one year we had to beat them twice.
Right.
And you just didn't sleep very well.
Right. And then the year that you won it was the year that they won it? Is that correct?
Yes.
Same year, one the day after us. And, a bunch of our boosters wanted to get T-shirts, 3A state champions and 4A state champions.
And put the score
Playing
on
them
it.
both.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. But that was cool, though. I mean, you got to admit, 2 schools in the same area.
Yeah, 11 miles apart.
11 miles that win the state championship, 2 classifications. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, outstanding.
Yeah.
So now, as you've grown, you see, you talk about Quinn Terrence,
Yep.
athletic director at St. Augustine. Guy played for you and coached with you. Brian Braddock, head coach, continuing the success. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think it goes back, the quote, success without a successor will lead to failure. So I think for me, it was very important to bring along young coaches, because somebody brought me along, and Kevin is the same exact way. There's a million coaches that I know have coached for Kevin, and they talk about him all the time. I think having successors and building people to be successful is part of your job. A level 4, level 5 leader, that's what they do. Level 1 leaders, they lead by position. Hey, I'm the head coach, you do what I say.
Right.
Those, to me, if you're going to be a head coach, you've got to lead the people under you. So the Brian Braddocks, Nathaniel Woolners, all those guys, if I went to learn, they were in the car with me. They were on a plane with me to go and learn. So to see Quinterrence, what he's done as the AD there I'm so proud of him. Brought a lot back to the school. I think as good of AD as there is out there is Ben Wendell. Ben was our running back.
Yeah, Ben played for you. Yeah,
back in 97, he was a great running back for us. He's done a phenomenal job out there. And Josh Hoekstra, he didn't play for us, but coach, and now he's one of the ADs at Bowles. And those guys that have gone on and done well, and the fact that there's 13 former players back there means a lot. And I think it really means a lot. It means so much more to those kids. They don't want to let the guys that played there pour them down.
Yeah, and the traditions that you started, Brian talked a lot about those and things that he's continued going. What tradition are you most proud of?
I really liked the burning of the shoes. I think that's one of my favorites because it's really an intimate time. Football is just collision and yelling and screaming. Here's an intimate time where you get your team, they get to sit down, and those seniors get to get up and talk about what it was like to be in the program. And there were kids, Jacob Meese never started a game for us, played all 4 years, and got up and talked about how it changed his life. And, being a part of a team, being a part of something great. So the burning of the shoes is great. They would get up and, there might have been a coach that was there for them when their mother died or something. They talk about that. Or I remember coaches, we had players getting up because we have a very diverse community, like Kevin was involved with. We'd have a minority kid get up and say, I really hated. I grew up hated you white guys. I hated you. And he goes, now you're my best friend. You're a guy I look up to. So if you can, make that happen in your program, give them the faith, I think everything else is really kind of gravy.
Yep.
Right. And that's what coaching is all about, right? The relationships you build, not only with the players and as they grow up, become men, but also the coaches, right? The coaching community. Off there, you guys were talking about some all-star games that you coached together, and you've talked a lot about going to, traveling to see different coaches and learning from them. I mean, coaching community itself is so special.
It's very tight, and relationships you make. Bill Cubitt, golly, back in the late 80s, Bill came up to my house for TPC. My daughter, Kristen, worked for the players. And he comes up and spends the night, spends the night and goes to the right. To the golf tournament. And just those coaches that you get calls from that, you haven't heard from in a while, it really makes... Right. If you're going through tough times, getting those phone calls from coaches you haven't heard from really makes a difference.
Well, speaking of all-star games, I got to tell a story. So we're in California for Cal Florida Bowl, and Joey and I did the year before, and so we're in it. So the first night, they're like, all right, the kids are in the dorm, so 2 coaches have to go and monitor the dorms at night. And I'm like, oh, Coach, we'll do the first night. They're like, really? It's your anniversary. I said, yeah, I know, but I got my anniversary tomorrow. Coach and I are doing the first night because we're veterans. We know what's going on. So we get in, and we got a bunch of good players. Fonzo Thorpe was there from Lincoln, but we got a bunch of kids. And so 10, 15, they bring all the food in for the kids, and they all come into the rooms. They get their food, and they're eating. So we're like, all right, y'all, it's all right. Hey, don't forget, lights out at 11. So Joey and I, we go in our room, we talk ball, we go to bed, right? Thursday night, we're playing on Friday. Thursday night, 2 young coaches go. They do it. It was Mark Feely and, God, I don't know who else. But so they go and do it. So they come in the next morning for breakfast, and they're pissed. I'm like, what's wrong? They're like, you guys are such jerks. You're jerks. I go, what do you mean? He goes, those kids were like, why don't you go to bed like Coach Sullivan? Those kids were up all night. We were chasing them around all night. We got no sleep. And Joe and I looked up at each other. I'm like, hey, man, rookie move, man. That's how it is. Got to get the first night, go to bed.
Well, and Kevin swore that he would never tell anyone that he slept with me.
Right.
You know, the night of his anniversary, but
my
you
anniversary
just spilled
night.
the beans, so I appreciate that a lot, Kevin.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's going to be
very much.
everybody gonna be calling you now. But, yeah, it was funny. And my wife's like, what do you mean? It's all right. We're supposed to go out. I go, we'll go tomorrow night. We need to get the first night because the kids don't know each other yet. You know how it's going to be. We jumped on that first night. It was great, man.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. And that's, again,
a lot of fun.
Keep harsh, talking about it. That's the things that you miss, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm assuming in retirement, that's what you miss the most, right? Being around the coaches on the
Yeah, that you do miss that. You know, I've had it's been nice. I've had an opportunity to, I don't want to say mentor, but I've had some schools come down. Great, I got to talk with Roy Miller and Mo Williams at Providence. They came down, and the guys at Christ Church Academy are doing a great job. I'm really impressed with them. Travis Hodge was a longtime friend. They came down, spent some time. So I've enjoyed that, but it's also allowed me to make up for some of that family time. My being around my wife Lydia has been important. My 2 daughters, Jessica and Kristen, that I couldn't do it without them. They actually. Kristen told me, my older one, she said, Dad, the best years of my life were those 4 years on the field with you, getting to be around the players and just being a part of it. And Jessica is, she was probably my biggest critic. Everybody in the stands would ask her why her dad wasn't doing this or that. And she's a phenomenal sports fan. So I've been able to, have some family time that we probably miss, as Kevin will tell you. It becomes so much more important, and that's one thing I would tell those the young coaches. People ask me, why didn't you golf? And I said, well, I coach, and it was my life, and it was my hobby. It was they say if you find something that you love to do where you do it without getting paid for it, you found what you love. Right. And so in that off season, I might go visit people, but on the weekends, I couldn't tell my wife I was going
play 5 hours.
I'm going to go play golf for 5 hours, and you guys do whatever you want. I couldn't do that. So I think for those younger coaches out there, is very important. Mm-hmm. And they weren't saying that to us, Kevin. No. They were saying get in there and grind.
Right.
You grind, or you're not going to be successful. Yeah. We're saying you can do it different.
Yeah.
And still be very successful.
Right. 100%, man. Most important thing, especially off-season stuff. Don't miss your kids' stuff. You're gone enough with during the season to be able to miss your kids' stuff in the off-season.
Well, and we've heard that quite a bit, right, on this podcast. Is what changes from the coaches from when they're single versus married versus becoming a dad is they make the most out of every hour. Whereas when you're single, you hang out at the field house all night. You get married, cut it back a little bit. Then when you have kids and the kids start having activities, it's like, all right, we're not wasting time. We're going to 2 days a week lifting. We're not going to lift 4 or 5 days. Right. We're going to get the most we can out of those 2. We're going to work our butts off, but we're going to cut back time and put our priorities in order.
Yeah, that was Madison County that did that. They said their kids had to work 3 days a week, so they lift them 2 days a week. They did it at night. And that's when we did it. And they came in at night, so they could work every day during the day, and I think that was pretty important. And Josh, I'm going to tell you this: I think what you're doing with this podcast Kevin, I think is phenomenal. If I'm a coach and I go and I listen to Brian Braddock, I listen to his, I listen to Kevin. I learned so much from Brian just listening to him, the different perspective that I didn't realize that he had. So I think this is an amazing thing that you're doing. I hope you continue to do it.
Well, we have every intent to, so we appreciate that. And talking about listening and helping coaches, right? One thing you could tell yourself, you could go back in time, knowing everything you know now, to tell yourself your first year as a head coach, what would it be? What piece of advice?
Golly, that's a tough one. Did you answer that, Kevin?
Yeah, I answered it.
You did it.
Yeah.
I would probably say go back and be more relational with your players and relational with your coaches than be out there not scrounging around, but looking around for the next best scheme. I would say the relational piece. Because if you have that, kids are going to play for it. If you don't, they're not playing. I don't care. And I wasn't going to bring this up. I told Frank Garris today, but the guy I played for in high school, I would, there was no relationship between players and the coaches. We didn't think we probably didn't play as hard as we could have. So I would probably say spend the time, and I think younger coaches are better than that.
Yeah, I do too.
Than what we were.
I would agree. As a whole, I think the younger coaches do a better job with that.
Yeah. And really getting involved with it. And it's hard now because as a head coach, at St. Aug in our heyday, we had 150, 160 kids. Mm-hmm. I didn't get to know them all.
Right.
I got to know my position, but I'll make sure those other coaches really got to know. One thing we did, we had them over to our homes on Wednesday nights after the hard day. We would have them into our homes, and that was one way we tried to get to know them. We had funny stories. Our house, we had a dog, and we had a couple kids and never been around the dog before, and we said, hey, Sally's a nice girl. We had a yellow lab, and we let Sally out of the room. We had two kids climb on top of our couches because they were scared. But little funny stories, they get to see you as a dad.
Right. That's important.
They get to see you as a dad. They get to know your kids. That's one thing Brian's done a great job. His kids are always around. Mm-hmm. So those kind of things. Be more relational. I went to Oklahoma, a couple years later, and they said, I read an article about Bob Stoops taking his kids to work. So I go there. So I go into the office, and all the assistants are in there, and they got kids around. And I go in the meeting room. There's no Bob Stoops, and I'm like, Kevin Wilson was there, the OC, and Kevin's in St. Augustine right now, too, a good friend. And I go, Kevin, he goes, he'll be back in a minute. He's taking his kids to school. So if Bob Stoops can do it,
right,
Joey Wiles can do it, and so can the others. Yep. So that would probably be my bit of advice.
I got to hit you with one more. So one more question. Of all the years you've coached, players, coaches, relationships, what are you, when you look back on your career, what are you most proud of? I know that's hard, and we gave you no warning, put you on the spot.
Yeah, I would probably say bringing, not that I did it, but I would say bringing the community of St. Augustine together. So the people of St. Augustine, churches that were involved, players, coaches, that's the one thing everybody was a part of. So I would say that. Obviously, the state championship was very special. Something I never thought I'd ever be a part of. I always told the kids, I said, guys, I'm not the smartest guy out there, but we're going to work really hard, and if you're going to be a great janitor, if you're going to be a great CEO, man, just work like you did here. Be successful. One time, I'll tell you a real quick story. I call them lounge lizards. And you go in the cafeteria, and where the teachers go in a lounge, and they get in there, complain about everything. And I walked in there one time, and one lady was saying, yeah, that kid, and he'll never do anything. She was talking about one of our defensive ends. He was a special ed kid. I said, let me tell you, he's the hardest workers we've ever had. He'll do something. About 8 years later, get a knock on my door, and he opens the door, and it's him. He's got 3 kids, got a job, and he was ex-ed student.
Mm-hmm.
Knocks on the door. He's dressed nicer than me, got his phone clip on his phone. The coach just wanted you to know I'm working at a hospital up in Jacksonville doing something. But those kind of things are really what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you see what you
Make
did
it.
with that community because
Yeah,
it's
without a doubt.
special. I mean, we certainly see that from being in part of the football sports community. Congratulations on a great career, what you've done, and how that tradition keeps rolling. We could sit here and tell stories all day, but unfortunately our time's up, and we appreciate you coming on with us. Thanks a lot.
Well, thanks, Josh.
All right,
Kevin,
thank you,
always
man.
great, man.
You got it.
Always great.
Baboon.